Remember last year? AI was everywhere.
It really was.
It felt like everyone was suddenly an expert in this thing that seemingly popped out of nowhere. ChatGPT, especially, I mean, it practically broke the internet, didn't it?
Yeah, it was huge.
It's crazy how fast AI went from, like, science fiction to our phones.
It is. But I have to admit, I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out what it all means.
Totally. Beyond just how to use the tools, right?
Exactly.
It's like we all got invited to Oz,
Okay, I like that.
but no one packed a map.
That's a great analogy.
And you get this feeling of, this is huge, but where do I even begin? And it's not just individuals who are feeling this way. Companies are wrestling with this too.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen tons of articles about that.
And the surveys back it up. That's one of the reasons we decided to do a deep dive into AI and the new Oz. It feels like a really timely book.
It really is. And it's more relevant than ever.
For sure.
This deep dive, it's our guide.
I love that.
The book uses the Wizard of Oz story, which is something most people are familiar with, at least a little bit.
Even if you haven't seen the movie in forever.
Right, exactly. It uses that story to map out what AI adoption can look like.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
And the thing that I find so fascinating is that the book really stresses how the biggest obstacles aren't the technology. It's not even the algorithms or anything like that.
It's us.
It's the human stuff.
Interesting. So, like, leadership.
Yeah, leadership, teamwork, communication, the things that determine whether integrating AI is going to be successful or not.
So the human factor is even more important than the tech itself.
That's what the book argues. It's like that saying, a fool with a tool is still a fool. We can have the most advanced AI in the world, but if we don't have the right people and processes in place, it's not going to magically solve all our problems.
That's a great point.
And that's where this book comes in.
Okay, so the book's first big idea is that AI adoption is a journey, not a destination. Just like Dorothy's trip down the yellow brick road, right?
Precisely. And speaking of journeys, did you see that stat about how much venture capital funding went into AI startups this year?
I feel like I've seen a bunch, but to be honest, they're all kind of blurring together.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with, but this one really stuck with me. Venture capital funding for AI startups has quadrupled in just the first half of 2023 compared to all of 2022.
Wow. That's insane.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, mind-boggling is a good word for it.
It's like going from, I don't know, a Sunday stroll in the park to rocketing down the yellow brick road in a Ferrari.
Okay, that's a visual.
And to navigate that speed, we need people who really know what they're doing.
Strong leaders.
Yes. Leaders who can guide and inspire their teams.
That makes sense. So it's not just about having a bunch of tech whizzes. It's about having people who can steer the ship in the right direction.
Exactly. Because AI is going to touch every single industry, and we need people who understand that bigger picture.
So you're saying we need more than just coders and engineers. We need people who can connect the dots between the technology and the human impact.
Absolutely. And the authors of AI and the New Oz highlight people like Bill Gates and Sundar Pichai as examples of leaders who get this.
Oh, interesting. What are they saying about it?
Well, they've both said that they see AI being as transformative as electricity.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is, but they're not just focused on the technology itself.
They're thinking about the bigger picture.
Right. How it's going to change the way we work, the way we live.
Yeah.
Everything.
So if AI's impact is going to be that big, wait, seriously, as big as electricity, where does that leave, like, the average person?
It means we all have a role to play.
I like that.
It doesn't matter what your technical expertise is. We all need to be part of shaping how AI gets integrated into our world.
Because it's going to affect all of us.
Exactly. Think of it this way. If AI really is going to be as big as the internet.
Which is kind of terrifying, but also really exciting.
Right.
It is.
Then understanding it, at least on a basic level, will be as important as knowing how to use a computer.
It's becoming a basic skill.
Yeah, like knowing how to read.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a programmer or anything to wrap your head around the core concepts of AI or to think about how it might affect your job, your life.
Exactly. It's more about cultivating what the book calls AI literacy.
Okay, I like that. AI literacy.
It's about understanding the potential benefits, the risks, being able to have informed conversations about it, make smart decisions.
So it's not just about knowing how to use the tools, it's about understanding the implications.
Exactly.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
So, listener, think about this. What does AI literacy look like in your world?
What are the first steps you can take today to start building that understanding? What could you be reading, listening to, exploring?
Love those questions, and AI in the New Oz has some answers. One of the first things the book suggests is thinking about what it calls the teams you need to build, both within yourself and your organization.
I love this analogy
Me too. It's so good.
because just like Dorothy's success depended on having a good team.
A diverse team.
Yes, our ability to thrive in the age of AI relies on that same principle.
And it makes me think about Richard Branson, who the book actually calls a modern-day Dorothy.
Oh, interesting. I can kind of see it.
Right.
In what way?
He's built all these amazing companies with people from all walks of life, musicians, techies, you name it. And the book emphasizes that diversity of thought is a major key to his success.
It makes sense when you think about it. Because AI has applications in just about every industry imaginable now, we need people with a wide range of perspectives to make sure we're developing and using it responsibly.
The book even quotes Branson as saying, "The key to success in business is to get out there, talk to your customers, and find out what they want." And I feel like that applies perfectly to AI.
Hmm.
We need to understand the human needs and desires at the heart of all of it. And that requires bringing a lot of different voices to the table.
100%. And it's not just about building diverse teams externally. We also need to develop a diverse AI team within ourselves.
Oh, I like that.
Think about your own strengths, weaknesses, and what skills you might need to thrive in this new world.
What does your inner AI A-team look like? I also appreciate that the book doesn't shy away from the scary stuff. Like, let's be real, people are worried about AI taking their jobs.
It's a valid concern, and honestly, one I've heard a lot.
But the book does a good job of reframing those fears. Like, remember how terrified the Cowardly Lion was of everything?
Oh, totally.
They use him as a metaphor for the fear a lot of people feel.
I love that. It's such a good way to make it relatable.
Right. Because we all have a little bit of Cowardly Lion in us.
We do, especially when it comes to something as new and unknown as AI. But the book encourages us to do what the lion did, face our fear.
And find our courage.
Yes, because when we do that, we open ourselves up to the possibilities. And there are so many possibilities with AI, it's really quite exciting when you start to think about it.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? How do we go from feeling like a scared little lion to being brave enough to embrace this massive technological shift?
That's a great question, and we'll be back after the break to answer it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into AI and the New Oz.
It's great to be back.
In the last part, we talked about how the book uses the Wizard of Oz characters to explain the human side of AI, which I just love.
It's such a clever approach.
It really is, and it makes these concepts so much easier to grasp.
Absolutely.
So we covered the need for strong leadership, the importance of diverse perspectives, even how to deal with our fears about AI.
All through the lens of those classic characters.
Exactly. So smart. So in this part, I really want to dig into some of the practical things we can do to navigate this whole new world because the book has some really great advice.
It does. And one of the things it really emphasizes is the importance of continuous learning.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, they use the scarecrow's whole quest for a brain as a metaphor for how we all need to approach AI.
With curiosity.
Yes, with curiosity and a willingness to keep learning and growing because the field is changing so fast.
It's true. It feels like every day there's something new to learn.
And that's not going to slow down anytime soon. Remember when we talked about AI literacy in the last part?
Yeah, it's like the new essential skill.
Exactly. Well, the book argues that it's not a one and done thing.
Like you don't just learn it once and then you're good.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process.
So we can't just rest on our laurels. We need to constantly be updating our knowledge and skills.
Precisely. Because the goalposts keep moving, right?
That's a good way to put it.
We need to actively keep up with the latest developments, understand how they might affect our work, and be open to adapting our skills.
So it's not just about learning new tools. It's about adapting our entire mindset.
Yes. And the authors actually give this really interesting example of Morgan Stanley, you know, the investment bank.
Sure.
They recently gave all their financial advisors access to an AI chatbot.
Oh, wow. Like to help them with their work.
Exactly. And it's powered by this thing called GPT-4. Have you heard of that?
Vaguely. It's one of those new AI systems that can, like, understand and generate human language.
Exactly. Like a super powered version of those chatbots you see on websites.
Wow.
But way more sophisticated. And here's what's so interesting. They didn't do it to replace their advisors.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of surprising, isn't it? You'd think they'd be worried about the AI taking over their jobs.
Right, you'd think so, but they actually found that it made the advisors more valuable.
Oh, interesting. How so?
It freed them up from all those tedious tasks like looking up information and summarizing market trends so they could focus more on the stuff that really requires a human touch.
Building relationships with their clients.
Yes, and providing really personalized advice.
So it's not about AI versus humans after all. It's about finding ways for them to work together.
Exactly. It's about AI augmenting and enhancing what we do best.
Love that.
Oh,
Because it means that AI doesn't have to be a threat.
it doesn't. And that requires a real shift in mindset.
For sure. Instead of being afraid of being replaced, we need to be open to using AI as a tool to be more efficient, creative, and ultimately more valuable in our roles.
That's exactly it.
So well said. And, it's interesting because the book also talks about embracing diversity, not just in terms of the people we work with, but also in the skills we cultivate within ourselves.
Absolutely. That's that Dorothy's eye for talent theme we talked about.
Yes.
They argue that building a diverse AI team within ourselves, that's crucial for navigating this new world. And a big part of that is continuous learning.
It's like assembling your own personal A-team, but for the AI age.
Love that.
Right. We need a strategist who can analyze trends
Absolutely.
and anticipate future needs.
For sure.
We need a communicator who can bridge the gap between the tech experts and everyone else.
So important.
And, of course, we need a lifelong learner,
Yes.
someone who's always curious, always seeking out new information and skills, and always adapting.
Because the learning never stops.
Never. The book actually gives some great strategies for developing that continuous learning mindset. One thing they suggest is creating something called prompt libraries. Have you heard of this?
I love this idea.
Okay, tell us what are prompt libraries and how do they work?
So a prompt library is basically a shared document where people can share prompts they've used for AI tools.
Okay. Prompts like, give me an example.
Sure. So let's say you're using a tool like ChatGPT to help you write a presentation.
Okay, I can see that being helpful.
You could go to the prompt library and see what prompts other people have used to get good results.
Oh, that's smart. So it's like crowdsourcing wisdom, but for AI. I love that. Okay, so we've got our diverse AI A-team. We're embracing continuous learning. What else?
Well, the book also talks about the importance of collaboration.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't do this alone.
Exactly. They use the Munchkin land as a metaphor, which I think is so fitting. Remember how the Munchkins were all so different?
But they came together to help Dorothy.
Exactly. And that's the spirit we need to bring to AI.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
We've got to work together if we want to create a future where AI benefits everyone.
100%. And the book actually gives some really practical suggestions for building that kind of collaborative spirit within teams. Like, one thing they recommend is holding regular meetings specifically focused on AI.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And not just to talk about the technical stuff, but also to share challenges, brainstorm solutions.
To make sure everyone feels included and on the same page.
Exactly. Because these meetings can be a forum for sharing knowledge, building excitement, and addressing concerns.
And breaking down those silos that can sometimes happen.
For sure.
It's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to ask questions, even if they seem kind of silly.
Yes. There's no such thing as a dumb question when it comes to AI.
I love that. And they also talk about the importance of celebrating successes, no matter how small. Why is that so important?
Because it's easy to get bogged down in the challenges, especially with something as complex and rapidly changing as AI. So it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the wins.
It's like in The Wizard of Oz when they would overcome some obstacle and then, like, sing and dance their way down the yellow brick road.
Exactly. Those little celebrations create momentum and boost morale, and they reinforce this idea that we're all in this together.
That's such a good point. It's not just about, like, getting the work done. It's about building that sense of camaraderie and shared purpose.
And it's also a great way to show the value of AI to people who might be on the fence.
That's true. Seeing is believing, right?
Absolutely. When people can actually see how AI can make their work easier, more efficient, or more impactful, they're much more likely to get on board.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
So we've got continuous learning, we've got collaboration, we're celebrating our wins. What else do we need to navigate the AI revolution?
Well, the book talks about this idea of becoming AI wizards, which I love.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
It's about stepping into a leadership role, but it's not just about understanding the technology.
It's about being able to paint a vision for the future.
Exactly. And inspire others to get excited about it too.
So, like, it's not enough to just be a tech whiz. You also need to be a visionary.
Exactly. A dreamer and a doer. Someone who can inspire others with a compelling vision, but also be pragmatic about making that vision a reality.
It reminds me of something we were talking about earlier, that balance between idealism and pragmatism.
It's so important, isn't it?
We need to be excited about the possibilities,
Yeah.
but also realistic about the potential challenges.
For sure. And we need to be able to hold those two things in our minds at the same time.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit because
Okay.
we've talked a lot about the exciting stuff.
The opportunity.
Yes. But let's be real. There will be bumps in the road, right? Like not everyone is going to be happy about all of this.
That's true. The book actually talks about that quite a bit, the resistance that often comes with AI adoption.
And they compare it to, wait for it, The Wicked Witch of the West.
Of course. Because what's a good journey without a little bit of adversity?
Exactly. So how do we deal with that resistance? Because it can be really tough, especially when people are scared or uncertain about the future.
You're right, it can be tricky. And I think it's important to remember that resistance often stems from a place of fear or misunderstanding.
People aren't necessarily trying to be difficult, they're just scared.
Exactly. So approaching them with empathy is super important, like really listening to their concerns and trying to understand where they're coming from.
That makes sense. Because when you feel heard and understood, you're much more likely to be open to new ideas.
100%.
Welcome back to our final deep dive into AI and the new Oz. We've covered so much ground already.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. From building those diverse AI A-teams to really leaning into continuous learning.
And of course, celebrating those wins along the way.
Right. Like Dorothy and her friends. But, just like in the story, there are always going to be challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
And the book doesn't shy away from those, especially when it comes to resistance to AI.
Yeah, that's the Wicked Witch of the West, right? Trying to stop progress.
Exactly. So how do we deal with that? Because it can be a really tough one. People are scared. They're uncertain about the future.
It's completely understandable. And honestly, I think a lot of resistance comes from fear or just not understanding what AI really is and what it means for them.
So how do we approach those conversations? Because it feels like it could easily turn into a whole thing.
Well, the book suggests that we need to start by really listening,
Okay, that makes sense.
like actively seeking out those concerns and trying to understand where people are coming from without judgment.
I like that. Because when you feel heard, you're much more open to having those conversations.
Exactly. And they have this great example in the book. It's about this hospital that was trying to get their doctors to use this new electronic health records system.
Oh, yeah, I remember that story. There's a lot of pushback from the physicians.
There was, because they were so used to doing things the old way, and this new system felt clunky and disruptive.
Yeah.
But instead of just dismissing those complaints, the leadership actually used it as an opportunity.
That's smart.
Yeah, they used it as a chance to improve communication, provide better training, and it really worked.
Because they took the time to listen and address those concerns.
Exactly.
It's amazing what a little empathy can do.
Mm.
And I think that's a really good lesson for all of us, especially when it comes to something as potentially disruptive as AI.
It is. It's about bringing people along on the journey, not dragging them kicking and screaming.
Exactly. Which is why the book talks about the importance of highlighting those early wins, showing people the value of AI.
It's like that saying, seeing is believing, right?
It's so true.
When people can actually see how AI can make their lives easier, their work better, more efficient, they're much more likely to come on board.
Okay, so we've talked about leadership, diversity, continuous learning, collaboration, addressing resistance. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But the book keeps coming back to this idea of becoming an AI wizard, and I have to know more.
Right. It's the ultimate goal. And it's not just about being good at the tech. It's about being able to really see the big picture and get everyone else excited about it too.
So we've got to be both tech-savvy and visionary.
Exactly. And the book uses Malala Yousafzai as an example of what that looks like in action.
Oh, wow. That's quite the comparison.
It is. But when you think about her unwavering dedication to education, her courage in the face of adversity, it's very similar to what we need in the AI space.
We need that same passion, that same drive to make the world a better place.
Yes. It's about having a vision and being relentless in pursuing it, but also being realistic about the challenges.
It's that balance again.
Exactly. The balance between idealism and pragmatism.
It feels like that's the key to all of this.
I think so. Being excited about the potential of AI while also being mindful of the risks.
And being open to adapting and evolving as the technology does the same.
Exactly. Because we're all on this journey together and the destination isn't fixed, we're figuring it out as we go.
That's actually a great note to end on. It's not about having all the answers.
It's about being open to the possibilities and working together to create a future where AI benefits everyone.
Beautifully said. And that's our deep dive into AI and the new Oz.
I hope you enjoyed the journey.
Me too. This book has given me so much to think about. We hope you feel the same way, listener.
And that you're feeling inspired to start your own AI adventure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those conversations going.